Let's talk, ever since the Bush days, we knew that with the FISA courts and stuff like that, there was an infrastructure to monitor communications with people overseas who could potentially be foreigners. Well, now, as it turns out...
It was all part of the Patriot Act.
It was all part of Section 215 of the Patriot Act. Well, now we're learning that apparently the NSA is not only spying on foreigners, they're actually monitoring every phone call you make in the United States. They're also taking a look at what you look at on the internet, and they're tracking your credit cards as well, all in the name of trying to keep us safe from another hit.
But you know who's not there? Twitter. Twitter finally is still holding out and not giving access to the government. And Apple held out for 5 years, but now they are giving access.
Well, none of the companies have given permission, extraordinarily. Apparently, what they're doing is the NSA is extracting information directly from the servers. They didn't ask anyone.
Well, they cut a deal saying, listen, you got to exonerate them from lawsuits.
Well, what's happened with regard to Twitter, apparently, and some have surmised that because they've got a reputation for aggressive defense of the user's privacy, that's why Twitter's not on there. But the companies say, we're not helping the government. They're doing this on their own.
Well, they might be saying that. Who knows what the real truth is, because this could be devastating to Internet companies if, in fact, they admit that they have allowed the government to come in. I mean, who's going to go now to be their customer if they think that they're being watched, unless it's all of them? And by the way, we should be clear that they're still saying that they're not actually listening to the content of your phone conversations. They're still saying that it's only the number that you're calling from and the number that you're calling, either domestically and internationally. But who knows? The bottom line is that both sides of the aisle here are in agreement that this is the right thing to do. In fact, Congressman Mike Rogers, the Republican from Michigan, not all politicians, but this is one of the very few things that there's bipartisan support on, because Mike Rogers, for example, says that a terrorist act has been thwarted from this PRISM program, as it's called.
But do you remember 10 days ago when the president gave his speech about the war on terror, all wars must come to an end, and this one must come to an end too? That was the mindset. But then if you listen to more of the president's speech, he talked about, the drone thing has got to stop, and then he says, we got to continue it. And now this is another example where I'm totally confused by the president's message and mission, because I thought the war on terror was coming to an end, was petering out. The head of Al-Qaeda, first generation, is basically all decimated, imprisoned, or killed. So I'm wondering what the president is also doing, thinking that, saying that, knowing that this NSA program that he condemns so vociferously as a candidate has been picked up and given steroids at this hour.
That's the headline. I mean, really, why would the president be agreeing to an even more excessive intrusion of private information if, in fact, the war on terror is Al-Qaeda's on the run?
But
it's
Gretchen,
over.
That's exactly right. A lot of people feel it's such an excessive intrusion on your personal life. In the beginning, we thought it was just, okay, they're just tracking calls between the United States and overseas. Turns out they're tracking all of us. Jonathan Turley, civil libertarian, was on this program last week. He's a constitutional law professor at GW, George Washington, down in Washington. He said, quote, the most recent surveillance program is breathtaking. It shows absolutely no effort to narrow or tailor the surveillance of citizens. Not looking at one person, it's looking at all of us. This is exactly what President then, Senator Obama, back in 2005 said is terrible, and when I'm president, I'm not going to do it, even though now he's doing it. Watch.
And if someone wants to know why their own government has decided to go on a fishing expedition through every personal record or private document, through the library books that you read, the phone calls that you've made, the emails that you've sent, this legislation gives people no rights to appeal the need for such a search in a court of law. No judge will hear your plea. No jury will hear your case. This is just plain wrong.
See, when you invent the internet, almost all the traffic around the world comes through our country.
Our servers.
Yeah, our servers. So when Al Gore invented it, it was very good for him to keep it here because he sold so many other things to other people from other countries. So we have it here, so we have an opportunity to monitor things in a comprehensive way. To me, there's no way they could be saying, Steve Ducey shopping again? Didn't he get everything he did last time? There's no way they do that because it's so pervasive. Maybe they have certain buzzwords and things and sophisticated programs to be able to pull out certain things. But, you're still not stopping the Boston bombing.
Right.
You're still not stopping Major Hassan from opening up fire at Fort Hood. But we don't know how many others have been stopped.
Well, if the war on terror is over and if all the spying is good, Well, then why over the last 4 years have we been hit so many times? With this president, we've been hit more than we were with President George W. Bush. What they say is because it's data mining, it's this metadata. I'm not going to get technical on you, but have you ever gotten a phone call where they go, Mr. Kilmeade, did you just use your Visa card in
Sunday
in Alabama to buy gasoline? You got that call on Sunday?
No, I got rejected by 7-Eleven, and they took my whole card away.
Well, it's the same idea where the computers, think about this, by keeping us safe, they've got to go through a gigantic haystack of information, right? All this metadata is the haystack. Unfortunately, we're all in the haystack.
You did just bring me down a little bit because Haystack Calhoun, 601 pounds, passed away.
Mm-hmm. All right,
meanwhile, let's talk about whether or not the media, who trashed President Bush for the exact same thing, now will they do that to President Obama? Well, if you look at how the New York Times, the editorial board, actually originally reported this story, here's how it originally was yesterday afternoon online. The administration has now lost all credibility. Mr. Obama is proving the truism that the executive will use any power it is given and very likely abuse it. But then that story changed a short time later to this. The administration has now lost all credibility on this issue. So they changed from just the issue to the entire sort of administration and what's gone on over the last couple of years to just this one particular issue.
And listen, I'm all for it, the Patriot Act. I think it's effective, it's necessary. And there's so many people like Senator Saxby Chambliss, way on the right, who say, listen, I've seen it, I've seen its work, I can't tell you everything, but it's effective. But Bob Beckel was never for it. He's on the 5, wears suspenders, you know him well, and he has not changed because the president's changed. Listen.
I think it is one of the most outrageous examples of stepping on the Constitution that I've heard. They have no right to phone records. These phone records, they get both sides. They monitor how long the phone conversation takes place. People who have they're not on record for anything. This is the government getting into our business that it ought to be out. It is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and it's deplorable. And I didn't like it when they did it in the Bush administration. I don't like it when they're doing it now. I know they're looking for methods and all kinds of intricate things on computers. Screw that. The fact of the matter is, they're listening in on, they're not listening, they're taking my phone records. Get your hands off my phone records. I mean, sometimes I got some 800 numbers I don't want you to know about.
I bet he does. It all comes down to trust. I mean, we're told that the information is out there, but nobody's looking at it.
So Bob Beckel doesn't want anyone to know he ordered the pocket hose?
But listen, we got to be careful, too, because would we be saying the same thing if President Bush was doing this?
It's who you trust in behind the wheel.
With President Bush, we were told that it was just between the United States and over there. Now, as it turns out, they're keeping an eye on all of us. I mean, a lot of people don't trust the federal government. Do you trust the IRS after we discovered that they were targeting Tea Party people? No. Do you trust the Department of State after Benghazi? No. Do you trust the Department of Justice after the James Rosen AP thing? No. So should we trust the intel community? We want to. Just ask.
Well, we have no choice because we can't trust our intel community. Things start blowing up and planes start hitting buildings.
But that's why people are worried, because they don't trust government.
And I think this issue may be on its own, though, because both presidents did do it. This may be more excessive. The IRS thing, I think, is what every citizen should be really concerned about.
Take the phone out of your house, throw your cell phone away, chalk and a blackboard or an erasable board and a marker.
Maybe that is why the guy on Green Acres had the phone at the top of the pole.
That was Petticoat Junction.
No, that was Green Acres.